The writings of J.R.R. Tolkien have been an inspiration to countless individuals, myself included. I first encountered his work when I read The Hobbit in middle school, and I was awed by the text. Tolkien arranges his words with a majesty and wonderment that entices the reader completely, transporting them into the visionary worlds he creates. And that only scratches the surface of his brilliance. Needless to say, I was a fan from day one, and have been ever since. So naturally, I was thrilled when a biopic on the author's life was first announced. The movie centers on Jonathan Ronald Reuel Tolkien's formative years, his friendship with like-minded thinkers, his time at Oxford, and his romance with Edith Bratt, all woven together by his experiences in World War I. Though promising, Tolkien fails to deliver on its core premise, resulting in an underwhelming tale with occasional sparks of greatness. The story is merely told serviceably, lacking flair or personality, which is a shame considering whom the film is about. Simply recounting the events that occurred is the safe approach, but dismisses creativity and risk in return. While it gets most of the facts correct, something I don't value as much as most when it comes to biopics, Tolkien divides its focus rather strangely, leading to some uneven storytelling. For instance, the World War I sequences are used as a framing device for the rest of the picture, which is told in flashback. This is a good idea on paper, but falls flat when it comes to execution. The war scenes are few and far between, often being forgotten in the mix. The main problem with this is that the emotional crux of the film hinges on these moments. The third act features a staggeringly moving interaction that relies on the consequences of World War I, but never reaches its full potential because of how poorly integrated the trench scenes are. Another example is how the film almost completely overlooks the importance of religion in Tolkien's life. It's mentioned in passing a few times, but feels like an afterthought more than anything, when in fact it had a major influence on him. Instead of exploring his more intriguing characteristics, the movie over-romanticizes and drastically simplifies the famed writer, leaving little to no room for complexity. As for the references to The Lord of the Rings, they really do get in the way of the story. Sometimes the visual allusions are harmless embellishments, but mostly they act as fan service and constant reminders that we are learning about the man who created Middle-earth, because the audience would supposedly be bored otherwise, I guess. Destructive flamethrowers become wicked dragons, and clouds of smoke take the shapes of evil entities. Again, this is a concept that sounds exceptional, but overshadows the underlying themes of the plot instead. Furthermore, the filmmakers really want the viewers to believe that Tolkien was thinking about creating his fantasy epic during every waking moment, which is frankly pretty laughable. Also, Tolkien was heavily against including allegory in his works. He used particular aspects of his life as inspiration for writing, but never attributed specific meaning to those themes. However, the movie counters this notion, which is arguably one of the author's most defining qualities, making for a baffling mishandling. But the film is not without its strengths. Nicholas Hoult portrays the eponymous author and does well with the role. He perfectly embodies Tolkien's animated spirit, when the script allows him to. I say this because when Tolkien is spending time with his friends, the screenplay often makes him an observer of sorts, and he comes across as the least emotive of the bunch, leaving Hoult with little to do. Speaking of which, Anthony Boyle, Patrick Gibson, and Tom Glyn Carney are all enjoyable to watch in their respective roles as Tolkien's sworn comrades. All four actors have an excellent chemistry, and watching their amiable exchanges is one of the highlights of the film. Lily Collins is delightful as Edith Bratt, Tolkien's love interest. Although, similar to Hoult, she's frequently restricted by the material given to her. The younger counterparts of Tolkien and his friends, played by Harry Gilby, Adam Bregman, Albie Marber, and Ty Tennant, all do a splendid job and exhibit a genuine exuberance. Owen Teale makes an appropriately sardonic and glacial appearance as the headmaster, and, rounding out the cast, is Derek Jacobi's whimsical and grandfatherly Professor Wright, who takes a liking to Tolkien at Oxford. Jacobi gives a magnetically delicate performance, exuding his uniquely pleasurable presence. I'd also like to give a quick shout out to Thomas Newman, who has composed a superbly elegant score for the piece. But where the film truly comes alive is when it unabashedly explores the beauty of art and language. There are a handful of scenes that express Tolkien's fervent love for these studies sensationally. Certain conversations, such as the one Tolkien and Bratt have over dinner or the meetings of the TCBS, flawlessly tackle the true essence of art and its importance. The movie magnificently communicates how poetry, prose, music, and more can change the world and defines them as some of the greatest privileges of life. Truthfully, I'm still shocked at how fantastic these scenes are. For all the faults the picture might have, the filmmakers understand the most important lesson that can be learned from Tolkien's life. The dinner scene I mentioned earlier carefully and fondly examines the significance of a single word and when it can be considered beautiful. And the film offers several of these sequences, all of them stellar. I don't believe I've ever come across a movie quite like Tolkien. It tells its story dutifully, which is adequate, but simultaneously unsatisfactory. The plot itself is interesting, but never elevated by the filmmaking. The characters are entertaining, but severely watered down. The war scenes, while featuring some impeccable lighting, ultimately fail in their purpose. As a whole, the film is perfectly fine and watchable, but never lives up to its subject matter. However, Tolkien absolutely explodes off the screen when tackling the most complicated material it must convey to the audience. The movie captures the splendor of art and its influence on the world. Tolkien ignites a mental fire within the viewer, challenging them to create and share. I've never walked out of a theater so underwhelmed by a film, but so inspired by it at the same time. It's confusing, honestly, but with all that said, I give Tolkien a C+. Again, getting the facts correct is not one of my biggest concerns with a biopic. If you value accuracy, I suggest you seek out documentaries, or better yet, read books. Biopics are not meant for research, they are made to tell a story. But I do believe getting the core values of a person or event is integral, which is why I find myself coming at this film harshly when it bumbles something crucial despite its factual precision. And so ends my brief rant. So, what did you think of Tolkien? Do you feel it portrayed the author properly? Were there things you liked that I didn't? Let me know your opinions in the comments section. And, if you liked this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel for similar content, as that would really help me out. See you in the next video.